Welcome, fellow wizards, to the Indie Game Lunch Hour.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
Today, we're doing a live podcast with our IGA community, where we're going to be talking about the process of learning new tools, why you should do it, and what are good strategies to adopting tools you've never learned before. I'm co-hosting today in place of Will. Willem was not feeling well today, so myself and Hamna from our community manager on the Indie Game Academy Discord is going to be discussing it with me. Hey Hamna, what are you having for lunch today?
Hi. What am I having for lunch today? I actually just finished steaming ribs, but cut. Like the rib cut in 10 pieces. And then I had it with this custom barbecue sauce, bro. Can I tell you the story about the barbecue sauce real quick? Please. Please.
Sure.
Okay. So I went to PAX East and there was a community meetup, right? And this is a community meetup that was run by a bunch of people I know from my other server. We went for lunch. I have a bunch of food restrictions, and the person organizing it was kind enough to call the people up and be like, hey, food allergies, restrictions, what can we do? The owner of the restaurant, this guy's name is Andy, at Seaport. His name is the Spot Barbecue in near PAX East Convention. And so Andy literally made me custom barbecue sauce that was friendly for all the allergies I have and a whole of it, bro. I'm talking a tub this big of custom barbecue sauce, no preservative. It didn't have any corn syrup, any rice, and I'm allergic to it. And I had that with some cut up ribs. So that's what I had for lunch.
That is customer service when you have an allergy to a sauce and they say, don't worry, I got you. And they custom craft the sauce on the spot.
That was so kind. No one in New York City has ever done that for me. In New York City, they say, oh, allergies? We don't have anything for you. The door is right there.
So a lot of times people talk about, helping small businesses and finding the hole in the wall places. And those are the reasons that you like going there because it is owner operated. So the people who have true investment in the success of that business are the ones they're working with you. And it's that I really prefer to find the small businesses where the guy who owns it is the one in the shop every day. It's the best way to just support hardworking people.
It really is.
Specifically those who want to be entrepreneurs like us indie game devs. Cool. So today we're going to be talking about the process of learning tools. I think that everybody here has had to pick up a new tool. If you are a game developer who has started at all, you've had to pick up something. Whether you're an artist and the first thing you picked up was MS Paint, or you advanced to Sprite, or if you're a programmer who tried Unity, or you're anybody who tried Unity and you either liked it or you found it overwhelming. You've had to pick up a new tool and find some level of proficiency in order to progress in your game dev journey. This is something that can be very essential, and I want to talk with the community today about when do you find the most appropriate time to learn a new tool? If somebody wants to raise their hand in the chat here, I'll invite you on stage and we can talk about using some of the or that when you identify when it's time to learn a new tool. BitBen Games requested to speak. I will invite him on and welcome.
Hey guys.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Hi Rick. Hi Hamna. In my opinion, usually I have two approaches to learning new skills or tools. One is when I have some free time in general and I like to check out something that I'm passionate about. And the other thing is when it's necessary, when I need to learn a new tool, or let's say, for example, in Unity, I need to learn a new plugin or a new approach to something because I need it for my game that I developed. Yeah, so these are the two scenarios usually I have with new tools and new skills.
Yeah, what are some challenges you've found? Like if you can talk about a specific tool you've had to learn and like when it was kind of tough, why was it tough and then what'd you do to keep pushing forward?
Oh yeah, I recently dived into Blender, and the last time I've been doing 3D stuff is like, I don't know, 10 years ago when Maya and 3ds Max was big. But nowadays everybody's using Blender because it became the industry standard. Therefore, I had to learn basically everything from scratch because it was so different with the interface and the menus and everything. And anybody who is new or who dived into 3D knows
Is that? So what was the context that you were learning the modeling tool in? Like what why did you have to pick it up?
because I wanted to have 3D environments and avatars in my game, like a character, basically. Um, so yeah, I needed to learn it in order to have something own and unique instead of, for example, buying something from the asset store or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But how did you get started with it? Did you just download it and open it up? Did you find a YouTube tutorial?
No, usually I learn by YouTube tutorials. Yeah.
Okay. How
I
did you
think
find
I
the channels?
yeah. I also wanted to add. I'm not even sure if it's really, at least for me, it's not really possible to just open up the program and like do stuff, especially with 3D, because if you don't know, then you don't even know where to start and what to do. So yeah, I just went on YouTube and typed in the specific things I needed to learn. For example, let's say I want to make a character, then I type in how to model a character in Blender or something like that, right? Use it as a search engine, basically. YouTube.
Yeah, I know sometimes when you do that, you'll end up finding an intermediate tutorial that's kind of above your head. What do you do when you encounter a tutorial like that? Like if you're brand new to the software?
I think usually I try to go like one step before that, so to maybe learn the interface or maybe find a beginner's guide or something like that. To the software in general instead of the specific thing. And once I understand the software, kind of, let's say the basics or fundamentals, then I switch to the more specific stuff that I really need in the moment for the situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that what you're describing sounds like a really solid approach. I know that, having used 3D tools myself, one of the things is that like the challenging things when you jump into it for the first time is there's so many buttons, there's so many menus. The problem is not that you necessarily don't know what to do, it's that there's so many things you can do. There's like 10,000 options from the very start, but only 10 of them make sense for what you want to do, and you need to have some level of context as to what those things are. So you're right.
Exactly. That's why it's so hard to just open up the software and dive in, because you don't know what you're doing. It's overwhelming, and therefore you need at least a bit of guidance, I would say.
Yeah, I really like how you talked about like, okay, you jump in and suddenly it's like they're talking about things that you don't really know what you want to do. So you step back to a more beginner tutorial to get context. Like I know using a tool like Unity, for example, a lot of these tutorials will say, go to the inspector and add a component. But if you don't know what the inspector is or how to add a component, then that can quickly turn into so much information that you have to like stumble through the very first time. And sometimes just getting the more simple and fundamental tutorials really helps for, even though you want to jump into it. Um, yeah,
Mhm,
that
mhm.
yeah, you want to jump right into it. Sometimes it's better to be honest about just how complicated these programs can be.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. And also, I found also when it comes to tutorials, there are mostly two different approaches. Um, I don't know if you guys probably know Brekkies, right?
Yes.
The Unity tutorial guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for example, what I also found out, especially about Unity, when you learn, for example, coding, is that there are so many tutorials that are giving you like a step-by-step instruction. Like now click this, now do this, now type this into write the script like this. And then you will have this and this result. But most tutorials don't really teach you why you should do it and don't teach you like the overall like the philosophy behind it or the approach why you are doing it. They just give you the result basically. And what I, for example, like about Brakis is that he's really talking about you are doing now this step because you needed, for example, this and this and this stuff, and he gives you like an overall explanation why you're doing stuff, and not just here's step one, here's step two, here's step three, and here's the result, which I would love to have more tutorials like that. You know, that's
Yeah.
also
I
one thing
kind
I noticed about tutorials.
I agree with that. I'm not gonna lie. So when I started learning Unity in 2020, I did take a boot camp, but I think one of the biggest issues in boot camps and in tutorials was that because I'm so visually coded, I need to see things happening and not just give me 10 steps before he does that one step within the software itself. And I realized that was one of my biggest issues in learning Adobe Suite when I was learning graphic design too. That they would be like, oh, you can just go to that tool and do this, but that is not the purpose of this tutorial, even though it's a beginner tutorial. And I'm just here like, what tool where? And then I go Google all the tools and I still lose track of the video. So I 1,000% understand that and relate with you on that. Brackeys is I think Brackeys was pretty much what supported my game dev's journey a lot when I did jump into game dev 5 years ago. I don't know if I would have made my games back then if I had not known about Brackeys. Maybe we should get Brackeys for the podcast, which would be impossible, but I'll try.
Well, yeah, he did come out of retirement. I heard he started making new videos.
Let me look for his
Yeah.
email. Does anyone here personally know Brackeys? Please help a girl out.
Yeah. So we got some people in the comments talking about great YouTube channels for learning Blender. Joker of
Ooh.
Aces says Blender Vitals is a good channel. Ghost Designer, The Royal Skies, and Blender Secrets. They're great for under 5 minute tutorials, which I do think that's actually one of the best things that you can do is finding the tutorial channels that break things up into bite-sized chunks because a 40-minute tutorial is insane. Like it takes you probably 4 times as long as the length of a tutorial just to follow along because you always end up pausing and going back. Sometimes you want to toy with things, but it's 15 times the length of a tutorial to truly understand it to the point that you can explain it to somebody else. So if you've got like a 1 hour tutorial, like you got to put 2 solid work days to really understand what's in a 1 hour tutorial. So breaking it up into bite-sized chunks, you can turn a 5 minute video into a hour and a half study session, right? To like like look at what's there and then truly delve into it and try to understand it. And that's a manageable time period. But if you have 25-minute video, that's at least a day. Like it's a whole day. And a lot of times we don't have the time to chunk out to just pure studying like that. Um,
That's,
we also
that's actually a
have
pretty valid point.
oh yeah.
What do we have? Go ahead.
I'm just looking through here. Blender compared the price point compared to Autodesk. Autodesk products have greater specific tools for a higher price, but the plugins, if you get Blender plugins, then you can really like bridge that gap. I think that's extremely valid because at a certain point, Autodesk is just predatory in its pricing. Adobe's worse, but Autodesk is definitely the challenge is a lot of times we are doing these tools and we haven't turned it into a profitable venture yet. So we're investing our own money. And everywhere that you can limit and use free open source tools, you will or single purchase that are like reasonably priced, like Sprite's $15. You can you have to like figure out what tools you're learning based on that price point and like what is sustainable for you. Okay, well, thank you, Ben. I'm going to invite Petunio up to talk about learning tools. Petunio is somebody who I have personally done almost 10 jams with projects, and
Wow.
he is a um, very skillful artist who is, I would also argue, is a tech artist. He's not afraid to learn different kinds of tools. He's not afraid to um, experiment with workflows and help develop workflows. So, hi, Petunio. Could you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Petunia. I'm an artist, and I know Rick. And we just finished. I don't know if we finished because we paused that. It was our eighth, I want to say eighth jam, in about 2 years or something like that we've known each other.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you an example of using a lot of tools, the right tool for the job. Many tools that we used for our first game jam that we did, which was Ragnar's Rock. And I'm gonna start with I'm gonna be throwing some images on the chat to kind of show like the steps that we did. So initially there were a lot of like concepts that were thrown, and I did very quick, very quick, like 10-minute each sketches. This is like I think I did like 6 of them, and eventually we settled on the one on the bottom left because I stole that one from Rob. Rob had previously worked on a different game, and it was a game that looked just like that one, and I used that concept for that one, and I think you recognize it, so that was kind of funny because then I had to just kind of mention that it was inspired by that.
Rob was the
After
artist in
that,
Starlight, by the way.
yes, Rob did all the sprite work for the main character. So the second of that was the tools that we are going to use. Rob was going to use Sprite, so I had to use Sprite as well. I love Sprite, so no problem there. And this is sort of like I did the backgrounds, the tile backgrounds for it, using a combination of Sprites and Tile Setter. You can see there Rob's sprite in the middle character. The environment is by me, and I think this was a week jam. I did 3 tile sets for Ragnar's Rock. Ragnar's Rock we never finished this one, so it has an a special place in my heart because it was such a failure, but it was a fantastic experience. After that, I used another program called Juice Effects to create we had to get some like really quick effects going, and I did some very toxic clouds by using juice effects. And after that, I got news that Rob was not going to be able to finish the final enemy, so I added a new tool to it. Again, just all these tools are added to finish a thing as quickly as possible. Like I had to finish a thing in a day. So for example, here I use a spriter to get the boss sprite done as fast as possible. Like Rob gave me the concept stuff like that, and I was like, yeah, no problem. And sprite it up. This is a puppet system to make the final boss. We did it right away, and I think we did like a little. It was like a little. It had like a little spawnling, but we never
Oh
got to
my God.
implement it. But it was really cool to make it. And then like the final 2 days, everybody was burned out, but we needed to make the illustration for it, and that's one of my favorite parts of a game jam. So I did this illustration in Photoshop is a little wonky, but it just has to look the part. That's all that matters. It has to look the part. And from there, I use yet another program to make things as fast as possible. This was a pixel art game, and so the main screen has to look pixel art. So I use Pixel Over to pixelate it. Again, wonky. It just has to look the part. We don't have time. And between all the suites and programs that I use there, it must have been like 5 or something like that. A few things to note: these were only used when opening another program was faster within the workflow than working it on the original program that I'm working on, say Photoshop, because this could all be made with Photoshop, but it would have been made so much slower. And this was a good workflow for for that project that was never released.
Yeah, so this is perfect. Like you have demonstrated how much you were able to get done because you had all of these different tools in your toolkit. So can you speak to the benefit? Like if you had chosen to just not learn these tools and tried to do things without using the right tool for the job, what could you like tell me like what your workflow would have looked like, and then like what were the benefits? Like specifically, like how did these things speed you up?
They speed me up because a lot of them are just like suited to like you can solve a thing sometimes with a click. For example, juice effects in making the toxic cloud. That is literally just one click, and you get that swirly effect, and we're done. We're It's just an asset that's going to be like around. Let's just go for it. Some things require more time and like a little bit of more fine tuning. So, for example, the main illustration, much faster to do it in Photoshop to get that like sort of painterly effect. Because then, you just use a brush with opacity and pen pressure, and you just go to town. In 5 hours, you get something that looks like a painting. Uh, it's essentially what is faster for this particular problem that I have. We have a bunch of little problems inside of a big old problem. Just use the thing that will be faster than that without using AI, because I refuse to use AI.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like the benefits is that you're using the right tool for the job, right? Like if you're only good at one specific software, then if you need if you have a nail, but the only thing you know how to use is a screwdriver and you never figured out how hammers work, then
Definitely.
you're gonna like you can get that hammer in or you can get that nail in, but it's not going to be as effective. So like that
Yeah.
taking the time to learn it pays incredible dividends over time. Can you
Well,
talk
so
about some
much
of
of
the Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. So much of game dev is both iterative as well as you have to do the same thing again and again and again. Like a game jam game will have 20 assets. A prototype, a vertical slice, maybe 100 assets. A release, you're looking at 500 and up. So you have to do this again and again and again. Look for ways of doing it faster and flexible too, because you have to iterate these. Uh, the latest jam that we did was a month long, and we use, I want to say, like about 4 tools. And again, just the best tool for the job. All the animations were made in Spine 2D, all the illustrations, Photoshop. I think we use Texture Packer, so I could give you the files as quickly as possible. And it's just like, what's faster, what's quicker. And
And I have to say, because I did collaborate with you and work on that, like using the deliverables that you gave to me, you were able to pack those up and you made slicing up those animations like just so smooth and seamless. Like on other
I love
projects
that.
that I've
That plugin.
yeah, on other projects that I've worked on, I'll get a character as a sprite sheet, and then it requires so much of my time to be able to fix up the character and implement it. It's like a new character comes in, this is 40 minutes of my time, right? But when I got the assets from you, it turned into you give me the character and like I have it because we worked out the workflow. I was able to have your new art implemented within like 6 minutes. It was amazing,
No,
and it's
you
because you
really,
had the tools.
yeah. Well, you also really need like a team that like is very receptive to like try new workflows, because they don't always work out. Sometimes they fizzle. So if you have a team that's receptive to stuff, like we work a lot with the improv yes and system, and it's fantastic because if I want to try a new thing, I'll take I'll take responsibility if it doesn't work out, and we can fall back to the older workflow. But when it does work out, like, oh, it's fantastic, we'll use it. That's it, we're done.
Yeah. We have a question from Alex or Alec saying every artist dreams of hearing that. Is there a universal delivery method or is it case by case
Is it
for the
is it for
assets?
me?
Yeah, I believe that that's for you. I'm sure it's directed at us, but
Is there a universal recipe? Oh, it's just case by case. I guess it varies with the project. If I'm getting the question right. In this case, the delivery method I have with Rick was so I don't bug him all the time. Because I've been in game jams where I did hand him the wrong sprites, and the product suffers. So learning how to get deliverables up on GitHub, it just goes so much faster, and I don't have to bug him uh, if I want to change or something like that.
that's actually something that I want to call call out. It's wonderful when you have an artist who is familiar enough with tools like GitHub to streamline the process of simply uploading your assets, and then knowing Unity and how your assets can be plugged in so that all of the import settings are taken care of, and there's like a bridge between the artist where I don't have to figure out what the art assets are. I've clearly defined what I need it to be at, and Rodrigo's able to figure out where those assets, um, or how to get assets to that point, and like we kind of have a back and forth. So I actually think this is us speaking out to like it's cool to learn things like GitHub because it's not technically in your discipline, but it's something that works better for the overall team workflow.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Get things to make. Again, your problem. The problem of a lot of games is volume. You have to do a lot of assets. You know, l- just just pinpoint that problem right away. Just laser focus on that, and you'll just get you just get so much more done far quicker, I think.
Yeah, another great thing you mentioned the yes anding.
Yeah.
Like having the communication with your other teammates to understand what are the problems that need to be solved. Sometimes you don't have the tools in your toolkit to solve it, but you're really good at going out and researching what do I need to find in order to uh, in order to bridge that gap. Because we'll have a discussion like here's what I have, and I say here's what I
Yep.
need, and then between us we figure out like how can we come together and connect so that the collaboration is really effective. Can you talk about like times you've found that?
Uh, well, it was mostly born out of times where I haven't found that.
Yeah.
Where you have it really helps. You don't have to, but it really helps when you know a little bit of other people's disciplines while making game dev. Because in the vacuum of that, you just make assumptions, and before you know it, you might not know the budget that you have in making a thing. Say you're writing a thing, you're writing a narrative, and you create multiple characters. In your mind view, you might think like, "Oh, this is brilliant. The more characters, the better." But you don't know the technical debt on in assets or programming that might be for the programmer or the artist. And you can just talk to people and be like, "Well, we have this problem and stuff like that," and see what you can negotiate. Before you know it, you might come by some very creative solutions there. But by just communicating.
Yeah. So the lesson that comes from this is finding the tools that you even need to learn it all involve talking with the other people on your team to see like what is it that you need to do that you need to find the tool to facilitate.
No, definitely, definitely. And to sort of end this, just in case somebody else wants to come and talk
Yeah.
about it. Uh, just look around for tools that are already made. I found is a great way to work on this stuff. And see the demo, see what they do, and give it a thing. For example, texture packer. We had the problem that we didn't know what to do with the sprites and how to like because when you export it on Spine 2D, they don't come in strips. So I needed somebody to put something a program to put all those in strips. And from there came Texture Packer out of like some three tools that I wanted to see whether or not they worked or not. And this one just worked out for us.
Yeah. So if anybody else would like to speak, first we're going to have Hamna ask a question to Petunio. But if anybody else has a question or would like to speak, toss up or has like a comment to add to the conversation, please post in our live events chat channel and we'll get you up to talk. Hamna, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, I do have a question real quick. Sorry, my internet's like. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I guess my question, Petunia, is you mentioned it's best to figure out a workflow by talking to the other team members regarding the tools that might be most helpful to your team. I guess like what's a beginner friendly version of that? Or to rephrase that, if you're starting off as an artist, for example, in a game jam, and you want to learn about these tools and whatnot, I feel like doing a simple Google search sometimes takes you down a path where you don't know what you need to use and whatnot. Are there any specific places, websites, resources that help you figure out what tools best would work for you? Or was it just talking one and they suggested some tools? Like, how does a newcomer figure out what tools are even out there for you to help? Because I didn't know these tools when I did it. So I learned it from word of mouth, but I know it's not the same for everyone. So how is it that for you?
Well, a lot of these tools, because there's a lot of analysis paralysis if you just go on Google or even YouTube channels, because YouTube channels will 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 show a lot of programs or a lot of workflows, because YouTube channels need content constantly. So it's sometimes counterproductive to look for new tools on YouTube. I found the best way is just person to person. In Discord, a lot of these programs have been recommended to me. For example, JuiceFX was recommended to me on the Game Maker Discord, or Crocodile. I think was also. I originally owned the program before we did a game jam for it because somebody recommended it as well. I found that those are the best ways to kind of just get started with a good tool set, because there's just a lot of tools. That's a reality of it, and they might not have what you need there. Other tools, just looking into itch, sometimes you get some really neat tools here and there. Sometimes forums. I really take a lot into consideration people's opinions on a lot of these tools, because if it work for the experience of one person, that usually lets me to know, like, oh, if it worked for that person, maybe I'll give it a spin.
Yeah, I think that um, it's all about your learning journey, because there is a point for beginners where they really don't know a lot, and ultimately you just have to keep, like one of the mantras we keep coming back to is just make games, right? But you have to put yourself in a situation where you are going to learn more and to expand. In fact, that's kind of the root of this whole discussion. Like finding a new tool, you've heard about it. I need to at some point commit to learning it. Um, I will say that like if you're doing a game jam, that's actually something that is a reasonably far in point, like it to your game development journey. I have broken up the learning journey of game development to the 7 C's of development. And the first one is you're curious, where you're just like curious about like what is game dev, what goes into it. That's when you learn there's art, music, writing, programming, design, marketing, etc. And then at a certain point, you commit to game development, and that's when you say, "I'm going to like pick up Sprite. I'm going to learn Sprite. I'm going to pick up Blender. I'm going to pick up Unity, and I've committed that I'm going to learn it." At that point, usually you are good to become communal, where you find a Discord community like the Indie Game Academy community. You learn from other people, you see what people are doing, and you expand your awareness of what is out there. And then at that point, you can say, oh, cool, I've never heard of this tool before. I'm going to learn this and find tutorials on its workflow. Eventually, you become competent. And competent doesn't have to be a lot. You can learn the simplest A to Z of like, I want to just get a Mario that only runs right in my game, right? And you are competent enough to deliver an animated character sprite sheet, right? Or even just, I want to make a barrel and put it in the game, right? Um, at that point, when you have the most basic of understanding because you've decided to learn your way around a tool and understand a workflow, then you can be collaborative and you can start with people where somebody says, "Hey, we need some art for the game. Can anybody do environment art?" And you're like, "I've learned enough that I can give you the barrels that you need," right? And that's simply going into a sprite and drawing a barrel and then exporting a PNG. So through the process, you have to learn the very minimal of something at all, and then you can jump into a game jam. And then when you're with somebody who says, "Hey, can anybody do a character?" You're like, I don't know. Do you have any ideas?" Somebody on the team will have a recommendation for you and give you that breadcrumb that you can follow. So like that would be my thought with that, Hamna, that it is important to make sure that you've done a little bit of groundwork and personal development to be able to contribute into a jam session. Obviously, some things are lower barrier to entry than others. Like, if you've ever opened up MS Paint, you can probably learn within an hour how to just use a sprite and export a PNG. But it takes a lot longer to understand the fundamentals of object-oriented programming and how to do software architecture to build a complete game, right? Like there's different levels of entry depending on the role you're choosing. And
1,000%.
don't let me downplay the artists. Good art is different from newbie art. Very different.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Hamna.
I was just gonna say, good art is tough. Good art is tough. I'm not gonna lie. So people who can do that and understand workflows with tools, they are rare people to come by. A lot of the times, in my experience as a producer, the artists mostly get a little bit confused with new tools, but I feel like if you're open-minded in the sense that you're welcome to learn it, even if it's not the most efficient, once you learn it, you can then give a counter proposal and then kind of explain why it works and why it doesn't work. But that's one thing I learned about from my previous experience in dealing with being an artist and then dealing with artists is that the yes and approach is 1,000%, I would say, like my Bible in everything I do. Like I don't know if I would have any art or any game, literally any project done if I didn't have the yes and mentality going forward. So Petunia, 10 on 10, 5.
Absolutely. Perfect example is the recent project me and Petunia did together. Was I was suggesting let's do 8-way character art, and he had recommended, well, why don't we do 2-way movement and 6-way shooting? So your characters are either flipped, moving left or moving right, and then your 6-way shooting is shoot up, shoot side, shoot down. And it's like, well, let's give it a try. And it ended up, oh, it was perfect, and it was really nice on our workflow, and it was something that was his idea that we ended up going back and forth on how to actually implement, and it worked beautifully.
Yeah, especially because it's very hard to do an 8-way character on Spline 2D, and just we took a reference for it. That's what kind of made it so that it was easier for us. I use a lot of references in what I do. Like I'll be like, well, this game did it, so maybe we can do it too. And in this case, it was that the Clash of Clans, not the Clash of Clans, the Kingdom Rush people have done it with a lot of games where they don't have 4-way animation. It's the view is top down. They have they mainly have just 2 ways, and it works if the characters are tiny enough. You really can't tell the difference. Um, let me see if I can get here a
Yeah, using references to
sample.
see what other people have achieved, and then figuring out what tools allow you to achieve the same thing they did. If you wanted to mimic a stylistic approach or a technical solution.
So for example, like I posted that's one of the units we have for the game, which is a mech. So it's party time when the mech comes. Everybody loves the mech, and animating that 8 ways in 2D would have been a pain in the ass and would have taken like valuable time from making more units. Like we have like 9 units in the game that we did within a month. And it would have meant that we had 2 less units or something like that. And the units is so teeny tiny, you can't really tell it's not 8 ways, and it gets the message across.
People love that the pilot inside of that thing moves around.
I know that really paid off.
That's just like a
Yeah.
cherry on top. Like, what the hell? That is so cool. Like, what? I was trying so hard to just look at the camera, but then I feel like you could. Can you? What? My brain broke. I feel like these would be great as toys too, Petunio. The smoothness of the animation is very comforting for my ADHD, to be very honest. Like you could definitely
It's really nice.
make toys.
Am I lagging out, or
No,
I think Kamna lagged out.
Okay.
Misha, I have invited you to come up to
Yeah,
speak.
My
I
chat
don't know
is
if you saw that.
Oh, she came back for a little bit. Okay.
Awesome.
But we got
Well,
any more questions?
yeah, thank you, Petunio.
Sure.
Great insights.
Awesome.
Hey, Misha.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to touch on tools a bit, because as an artist, what you guys are talking about, I can relate to, and basically how I'm now looking at experimenting with AI tools myself, and seeing these 2D to 3D conversions, and then like thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll just use this to prototype it, and then I can polish it out, because I would say one of my niche games ideas that I've been putting on the burner, but I want to build out is like a kind of a racing game, but like kind of a more communal kind of car customization game as well. And I've been doing a little bit of casual research on that, also playing some mobile games too, and just also determining, and this is also something maybe that's good to talk about too, is just in general, how tools are implemented for different platforms, right? Like if you use a tool that's more conducive to publishing on a mobile device versus a console versus a PC, right? How do we adapt the tool sets to that? Or is it very much the same process? It's just that last final push where you realize, okay, this is the little tweak we need to do. And like, for instance, obviously now we've realized, and this is where at least I'm feeling like even with AI and with like quantum computing and all those higher end technologies, how the quality level, especially even for AAA, is going to be keep raising and raising to a point where maybe we won't need to necessarily optimize our meshes so heavily for like a mobile platform versus like a PC, where we can keep that consistency, and it just comes down to how the computer maybe compresses the data, right? And like how it can hopefully, as even our mobile devices increase in power and efficiency, become more optimized, basically.
Right. So you're talking about how when you are working and you have a particular workflow, and then down the line you realize that there are optimization tricks you got to figure out.
Yeah, that's part of it. And then at the same time, thinking about in the near future, how are we going to adapt to now maybe not needing to optimize as much, because the hardware will further be improved, right? So
yeah,
that's where I still feel a good thing I'm hoping for is in the near future. Well, hopefully the hardware will all obviously acclimate and improve to a point where our software tools will also obviously improve. And just like with AI, is kind of accelerating that process, and a bit with machine learning, it's learning from its mistakes, right? And then us as humans, if we learn from it instead of let it learn for us, that's the key.
Right. So you're arguing that sometimes you don't need to adjust exactly what you're doing because the environment around you will change to accommodate it?
Possibly. Yeah, that could be one perspective. But yeah, you guys feel free to implement your own too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that that's valid to do research on up and coming technology, to just say like, hey, listen, we have this particular solution, and we think that it will work with the advent of new technologies. Um,
Hmm.
figuring out what is worth spending your time finding the solutions for, because maybe
Hmm.
it's not going to be a relevant problem down the road.
Right,
I
right, right.
I do think some of this, like for example, I think an interesting tool can also be like the subtools and systems within an engine, right? So, like this makes me think from an optimization standpoint, something like the difference between the object-oriented programming approach and the entity component system approach that uses job systems and ECS. Um, if you want to have a lot of units on the screen, so you have you know the component system, the standard object-oriented programming approach, where all of the units run individually, or you have EC.
I think so. Sorry, clarify the last section there. Rick, are you still there?
At some point I couldn't tell if his video was stuck or my video was stuck. Is my
Right.
video stuck too, or is it just him?
Might be him. I don't know.
Oh,
But Hamina,
sorry.
what's your thoughts?
What's my thoughts on what?
What I was just talking about there when it came to like tools, AI, and hardware, software kind of optimization.
Oh, wait, Rick disappeared.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Rick, you're back. Yeah.
Yeah. So fun fact: fans and motors create electromagnetic interference, and sometimes when
Okay.
your Wi-Fi is going out, if you have a bathroom fan on and you turn it off, you get your signal back.
What? What
Yeah.
about a regular fan?
Any kind of motor will create that interference. So chances are, if you have that motor sitting right next to your computer, but especially if it's between you and your Wi-Fi, it'll mess
It's
up your signal.
Wi-Fi. I feel
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we guys are going to wrap up soon. I have to get going, but thank you again
Okay.
for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Misha.
Thank you, Misha.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to close off on this, to talk about reticence in learning a tool, where you say what I'm doing is already working. So why would I bother learning a tool that people say can be better, um, when I already have something that is working perfectly fine? It's that natural human instinct to go with the path of least resistance, and to stick in your comfort zone. That is a challenge that I know a lot of people run into. I know I run into it. Um, like recently, I had a professional opportunity, and one of the things is that they want you to know Jira and Confluence. And I have a lot of project management experience and production experience, but I've stayed away from Jira because I've never actually had to learn it. So it's it's one of these things where, this as I've learned a little bit more about this tool, I realized, wow, this can be um, a huge improvement to my workflow, but I have to get past a certain learning hurdle in order to in order to become as effective, and get past my ability to project plan and my more manual tools, to have this automated system that is like very, very effective. Um, I'm curious if anybody has thoughts about this as a concept where you want to stay in your comfort zone, and for that reason, you keep putting off learning that new tool. Tools you've heard about that you know you should learn that you just don't.
I would
I
have to
see a
say
nervous
3D.
I see a nervous smile. I feel like everybody has a nervous smile because we all know we all have that one tool that is our bugbear.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
So this is something where I just want to close out and allow anybody who's up here who wants to speak on this, or anybody from the audience. We started a little late, so we can run just a little late. The One of the best ways to force yourself beyond that, because I know personally, I have ADHD and I have a hard time setting an abstract goal for the sake of that goal. But if I have an underlying reason, a fire behind me, forcing me to do something, I tend to learn things better. So, for example, learning a lot of aspects of Unity, I put a Unity exam at the end of that. And, so that gave me a deadline and it gave me a sense of urgency rather than just open ended. I'll learn it sometime before I die, right? The So using game jams as a specific goal, deciding I am going to use Jira and Confluence to produce this next jam that I'm doing. And my goal with this jam is to develop this as a skill set. You can do that. Or it can be I want to learn how to use 3D models and set an explicit goal. I want to learn how to create a 3D environment with this specific visual outcome. Or to create exported models at all, learning the fundamentals of it. Using jams as your gateway to break the learning curve into new tools is essential for shaking you out of your comfort zone and giving you the confidence to work it into a more regular workflow. That's the assertion I'm making. I want to hear rebuttals, I want to hear affirmations, I want to hear thoughts and comments. I see typing happening. I see people talking about programming being one of the things that is their bugbear, 3D modeling, somebody saying art. Everybody's got something. Awesome. So for the podcast listeners, there are people typing, oh, my bugbear. Okay, they want to know what my bugbear is. Well, it's definitely been things like Jira, because I have gotten very comfortable using a tool called draw.io to manually create these tools. The problem that I have with this is my draw.io things are local and only I have access to them. So the challenge that I need to solve is I need something that is more collaborative and something that prevents what's called cache invalidation through wiki references. So if we have a design document that will sometimes change over time as the project goes through iterations, you'll if you have old documentation sitting around, people will sometimes build off of what was that is no longer valid because we decided as a group to make a change. And as long as that exists, that can lead to errors and people wasting their time or moving in a direction that the team agreed we're going to go in a different direction. So using something like Jira is great because it's a collaborative space where you can make an update in one place and it's referenced from multiple places. So you can have that universal source of truth. Also, just the ability to have certain things automated, like Jira, and so like I said, I recently dove into it. Bugbear that's been sitting off to the side. I have to manually take my roadmaps and turn them into Kanban boards, but Jira will automatically take my roadmap and turn it into a Kanban. Like there's like 6 different ways it can present all of your tasks to you, and it automatically does that. And you don't have to manually manage it, and it's wonderful. Like I understand why it's the industry standard, but but sometimes you're just like, I know that I can successfully produce a project with my old way. It takes a lot of work from me. But if you take the time to learn that new tool, then you can evolve your workflow and and then permanently improve your efficiency and your ability to make projects. Coutinho says brought to you by Jira. Yeah.
Jira.
So I
It is expensive. Maybe Jira should sponsor us. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. Well, Jira is actually free for less than 10 users. That's what I saw. So like you can play around with it and experiment. So you can use it as a learning tool if you have a small team. But what's actually really important, and this is a benefit to using these kinds of tools, is sometimes professional opportunities require that you use specific tools. So having a familiarity with them is is really beneficial if you're applying for jobs. So that's a benefit is um, even applying the Pareto principle, which is the first 20% of your effort gives you 80% of the results. As long as you have just become competent in the fundamentals of a tool, you can step into a team and start using it without that huge learning curve. Like you don't have to be super ultra certified master of Jira to be able to jump in and find your tasks, right? But being able to confidently say in an interview, yes, I've used it and I can navigate around without somebody having to hold my hand. We'll just be like, okay, cool, we'll get you in. You can learn what you don't know on the job, and that can be the difference between whether or not you get an opportunity. So the reason you don't do it is you want to stay in your comfort zone and do what you know. And then the reason you do it is because it ultimately makes you a better developer for having done that. You just have to get past that mental block. And you can break that block by setting a goal in a jam. That's my dissertation. All right.
That's a wonderful
So
dissertation.
yeah, all right. So we are right at the hour mark. What we can do is let's assign homework. We still have three people up on here. Um, let's all three of us assign some homework, and then some people are asking about seeing that game we were talking about. So we'll share that after the podcast ends. Um, the so Hamna, do you have homework for people?
I think one thing I would love to give as homework, and people are welcome to like tag me, DM me about this in the server anywhere. For anyone who's starting fresh, or even for people who are in their current workflows, what's one way to, I guess, like you can post about this, right? Let me know what one way is to fight off the scaries of learning something new in terms of like workflow, in terms of tool optimization. Just one tiny thing. If it comes to you and you think of it, let us know in the server. Let us know in the Great Hall. Because I personally am also going through it where it's a different, I had a different job, but I feel like solving through discipline is the same. And I feel like reading other people's ways to get around stuff would help me and help other people too. That's my homework.
Great. Petunia, what is your homework? All right, he's not saying anything. My wait, is it? Okay, my
No.
homework for everybody is to um, pick a tool that you know that you've heard that you know you should be learning, and commit into a jam and accept that you are going to be a beginner, that you will not be as efficient in doing the other things you're already good at because you are stepping into a new tool, a new skill set as a beginner, and just push through that and commit to being some kind of better at that tool by the end of your project.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh my goodness, this is a
Yeah.
fun one.
It must be the storms in our area causing
Oh yeah, there's a
internet
big
nonsense.
one. There's a
Yeah.
Rick and I lived in the same area, in the Baltimore area. So if there's a storm happening or an internet outage, it affects both of us.
We met at a
Mm.
global game jam site a few years ago
Yeah.
in
Oh yeah.
person.
Yes, that's what we met because of Rob, the pixel artist that I mentioned earlier before. Did everybody else get their homework?
Yes, we gave our homework. You get the final homework.
Fantastic. So the homework I have is when looking for tools, you might have seen another tool that didn't make the cut. My homework would be to, give that other tool that you didn't look into it that much, maybe a second look. If you went for a sprite, there's promotion NG or pixel edit. There's a lot of tools out there. What is it that made some people pick that one specific tool while disregarding the other one? You really never know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for doing this community episode with us. Thank you for all of the questions and comments that came in the live chat. We hope that all of you go and expand your knowledge base and learn more about what is in the system. And we will catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later. Bye.
Game over.